5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Sofa Club is live.
Welcome to the Sofa Club, presented by Peccadillo Pictures. Today, we've got a bit of a treat. It's not a treat, it's probably my favourite film of 2019, and it's called Sequin in a Blue Room. You will be seeing an awful lot of Sequin in a Blue Room over the next months. It's probably one of the most influential feature films to come out of Australia in the last decade. I thought I'd start with some big announcements like that. And I'm very confident that when you see it, you'll agree with everything I've said. If you haven't decided to see the film, maybe this Q&A will help you. We've got two of the stars of the film. We've got Simon and Conor with us. And we've also got, as you can see on the screen, Sam, who is the director, but also the co-author of the film. I think you might have guessed I quite like the film, which is probably a good place to start. I say 2019, that feels like a long time ago, because if I remember correctly, when I last looked at the diary, we are now in 2021, I believe. I'm not quite sure what happened to 2020, but maybe we can move over that. Sam, let's start at the beginning. I was actually not going to mention that this is a graduation film because it feels as if that's totally the wrong thing to say. But I remember when you submitted it to Iris, whenever it was, I was just blown away. And there's a thing that happens for film festivals. You know that the bigger festivals are going to come along and pinch the film. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to fall in love with this because I'm already there. But I'm not going to get too close to the film because the chances of us still having it by October, but obviously you stuck to your guns and you allowed us to screen the film. But it is a graduation film.
Yeah.
Please explain why have I been sitting and watching absolutely hundreds of graduation films and was looking at my watch for most of it. And at what point did this graduation film become this masterpiece?
Well, thank you. That's very lovely. Yeah, it is my graduate film. It's my graduate film from my 2018 master's degree at the Australian Film School. It's actually where I met Simon. And yeah, I never intended to, one, I never intended to be a filmmaker, and two, I never intended to go to film school. I sort of found myself there, and by luck of the chance, I was really sort of taken in and mentored and supported by some incredible Australian directors while I was there. And I guess probably like maybe 2 years into being there, I think they felt as though I was getting bored or looking maybe to do something else, or looking to sort of go off and start making films. And I got pulled aside one day and asked if I wanted to come into the Masters instead. And if I did that, there was a possibility that I could maybe do a longer form piece of work as my graduate film. And I like a challenge. And I had an idea for a film, and I had a writer who I love to work with, Jory Annist. And yeah, it sort of just, we hit the ground running. I knew that I was going to go into doing a master's. It's a 2-year program. We started writing probably like the week before I started the actual course. So we had the script ready. We could go into casting, and then yeah, with a shoestring budget, we ended up being able to make it. And then we went into post, and by the end of the 2-year course, the 2-year masters, we had completed the film. And a few months later, we had it ready for our world premiere at Sydney Film Festival. So it was a marathon. I don't recommend it. In hindsight, it sounds great and it sounds like a dream come true, and it was, but it was also incredibly difficult for everyone involved, and everyone had to, play 4 roles instead of 1. But a lot of passion and a lot of belief in the project. And yeah, the rest, all of the success that the film has gone on to have is humbling, and we didn't expect it. And the fact that it's being released in the UK and we're talking now 2 years later about it is crazy.
Well, I think the important thing to remember, I guess, but I have met you, and I think you are a nice person. You have the rest of your career to thank everybody who helped you with this first film. So that's and I'm sure you will as well.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, just as a curiosity, I love the idea that you had no intention of being a filmmaker.
Yeah.
So what exactly did you want to be then?
I grew up in like live music, and then I went to acting school and soon found that unlike Connor and Simon, I don't have that talent. But what I did find was that I really liked shaping a story and being a storyteller, and ended up in a bunch of different places trying to do that, to be a storyteller, whether that was writing novels or journalism or doing theatre. And then one day someone turned around to me as we were driving like a theatre set back from a show and said, "Have you thought about doing film? I think you're really visual." And then they told me to go to film school, and I applied a few weeks later, and yeah, now I do this.
At what point did you realise that Conor and Simon were far superior actors to you then?
I've known Simon for a really long time. Simon was actually in the first theatre show I ever directed. So he was one of my first ever friends I met in Sydney. And then Connor, I found, only a couple of months before the film, but no, very quickly, both of them showed what they can do. And we actually wrote the role for Simon because my co-writer Jory wrote that play as well. So the role of Tommy was always written for Simon, and then Connor was the unicorn we had to eventually find.
Because I mentioned deliberately, you acting, directing, because obviously, Simon, congratulations on being both a filmmaker and an actor, because obviously you had a short film in the Iris Prize last year, and congratulations on that. Well, I'm sure we'll come back to that in a minute. I was going to ask Conor if you could tell us briefly, without giving too much away, what the story's all about.
So it's about a 16-year-old boy who uses the alias Sequin online, and when we meet him, he's sort of immersed in online hookup culture in Sydney, and he has a preference for older men. And he gets invited somehow to an anonymous sex party at a place called the Blue Room. And he goes, and there he has an amazing encounter with a stranger who he develops a deep obsession for. And they get separated, and he spends the rest of the film trying to track him down.
I will leave it there. I think
yeah.
We leave it there. It's very sexy, isn't it? It's very kind of, I wouldn't say it's explicit myself, but that maybe I've been watching too many films. But it does deal with sexuality without hiding anything. We have no fade to blacks. The camera doesn't disappear through a window whenever there's sex on the screen. How did you react to that when you were looking at the script? Because obviously, I think it's fair to say you're at the beginning of your career, or you were earlier in your career when the script landed. Did that create any problems? Did you have to think about it? Did you have to talk through, should I do this, should I not do this?
No. When I read the script, like all of the sex was clearly for a storytelling purpose. That was very much the atmosphere that was created on set. We were telling a story, and it was refreshing to read something that dealt with queer sexuality, especially adolescent queer sexuality, in a really frank way, and sort of detached from shame or stigma or anything like that. Yeah. So no, there was no hesitation. I read it and I wanted to be involved.
And I think Sam's already suggested that the process was quite a long process. How long did you have to spend filming? Did you film it all in one go, or was it one of those projects where you did a couple of weeks here, then there was a gap, you came back 6 months later? How did that work?
So you can take that, Sam, if you want. Okay. So it was, I found out I got the role about a month before, I think it was a month before we started shooting in around February of 2018. Then we started in March 2018, about a 5 to 6 week shoot, really, really tight. Yeah, no time, no money. Yeah, 3 years ago, 3 years ago to this day, we were shooting it. That's wild. Just realized that. My goodness. So yeah, 5 to 6 week shoot, and then later on in June we did a week of reshoots. And yeah, that was, and some ADR here and there, but yeah, it was mostly that 5 to 6 week shoot. We got the bulk of it done, which was a mammoth effort from all involved.
Well, thank you for the reminder that today is the anniversary of the first day on the shoot. Walk me through.
Maybe it was first day.
First day, that's fine. Walk me through what it was like on your first day walking on the set. Try and remember, what was that like? Where were the nerves? What, you know?
I was so nervous. Sam and I have talked about this. I was so nervous, and I don't think any of the footage we shot on that day has made it into the film. But yeah, I was petrified. I went to a theatre school and didn't have a lot of film training. And really, like, the whole experience was just like the best education. But like that first day, oh my goodness, I do not want that footage to appear anywhere ever. Burn it.
That goes both ways though. Like I was petrified the first day, and I did not do my best work, hence we reshot that scene in June.
Like, let's be honest, have we ever met, Simon, your first day on shoots? Is it normally something that you look forward to, or is it that mix of nerves and anticipation?
Oh god, well, I get nervous for anything I do, but I felt like in this particular project, the wheels had already been turning, and I was kind of watching that from afar, and I knew I was in really great hands. I only was on set for 2 days, so both days were such a fun adventure for me.
Sam, if I can go back to you, and this is a little cheeky one, but it's meant with a lot of heart, okay? You mentioned that the role for Simon was created. So Tommy, we knew what you were doing there. You had to look for Sequin. What was it? What happened when you saw Conor? At what point did you kind of yeah, that's definitely Sequin? Be honest.
No, it's two-sided. It's he was actually submitted quite early on, probably only a week after we put the initial call out. His Conor has a really fantastic agent, and they put forward Conor, yeah, quite early. And I did what no director is meant to do, but I am guilty of doing it. I looked at his headshot and said no, and that was genuinely because I guess, my own insecurities of making my own first feature film. Conor felt like a really obvious choice for the role, and I guess I sort of underestimated him, and it wasn't quite how I initially saw the character in my head. And then it was probably, like a month or two later, to be honest, we were casting the Sequin for quite a long time for that role, because I knew how difficult it would be to find the right actor in Australia, especially. And his agent emailed me out of the blue and said, I have a really good feeling about this film for some reason, and I have a really good feeling about Conor in this role for some reason. And I was like, love that, trusting your intuition. Why don't we get into self-tape? And I sent through 2 monologues, and to this day, I've only ever watched the first 2 lines of the monologue that Conor chose. He was the only actor out of every actor who self-taped that chose a monologue that was clearly from the film. In the first 2 lines, he captured something that was in the writing, but I don't think I was entirely conscious of yet. And that was a self-awareness and a confidence and a calculation in Sequin, where he knew the weight of his presence, but he also knew the weight of his words, and that he could use them very sparingly and still carry an entire scene and carry the attention of another character with very little, because he's aware of his presence. And Conor nailed that in 2 lines.
I think, isn't it interesting, in a strange way, one of the main themes of the film, there might be something better further along. And you saw Conor right at the beginning. That's him. But in the back of your mind, you thought, oh, it could be somebody better than this. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was so wrong.
We don't want to give too much of the film away either. At what point, I'll start with Sam and then I'll bring in Conor and Simon. At what point did you realise, and don't be shy about this, at what point did you realise this had worked? That this period of no money, bringing it together, that the audience response or festival programmers or whatever it was, at what point did you kind of go, oh, wow, okay, this is something special?
Oh, the first time I ever had that feeling where I was like, maybe this will work. Like maybe this has been worth it, was actually when we were shooting. And that changed very quickly once I saw the first cut. But when we were on set and we were shooting, there was this scene that Conor did. It's actually one of the most difficult scenes that I have ever shot, and I'm sure will ever shoot. And I know Conor found it tough as well. It's a violent scene in the film, and it wasn't that. It was the feeling on set, and they weren't even seeing the screen yet. And Conor's performance was so captivating, but I don't even know if I've told Conor this before, but I actually had to remove myself from set because I started crying, and it had such a profound effect on me. And I wrote the scene, and I rewrote the scene like 100 times, and it was that moment for me because I felt that it worked on me, someone who knew it really intimately. I felt that it worked on the crew. And then I also had clicked for the first time just how much of a thriller and a psychological thriller this film really was. And I felt confident in that from that day onward, and that carried through to the editing process where I was really able to bring that to life and really bring out that genre element a lot more. So that was a real turning point for me, I guess.
Cool. That's fascinating. So on set, basically.
Yeah.
See raw material and fantastic actors. Conor, do you have a moment where you realised that investing your time, precious time in this project, that it was worthwhile? That you kind of went, oh wow, this is big.
I don't know if I had a moment. Like from the second I read the script, I had a faith in it, and every day on set was like everyone just like collaborated so beautifully. And coming into it like from mostly a theatre background, I was worried that it wouldn't feel like an ensemble sort of thing, that I would sort of feel on my lonesome and everyone sort of in their own department sort of thing. But it was really like an ensemble effort of its own kind. And so the whole thing felt very very worthwhile, very fulfilling creatively. And yeah, I think I didn't have a moment during the shoot because sort of you have a different perspective on it after it's done, and you're sort of so deep in the circumstances and the story, that well in my experience I can't really sort of zoom out and look at the project as a whole on a macro level. Maybe the premiere at Sydney Film Festival, the atmosphere in the foyer and afterward, everyone, it was just so much support thrown at the film. So yeah.
Simon, would you say it was a premiere? Was it a public occasion where you kind of were able to sit back and look at what you played a part in, that this thing was working?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Sam for quite a long time now, so I knew from early on, and I knew Jory as well, who's the co-writer. I knew early on that it was going to be a worthwhile project to be involved in. And initially, I wanted to approach Sam to ask if I could be a runner or an assistant on set. So being told that he'd written Tommy for me was such an honor. Felt very special. And yeah, I know Sam, I know Sam's work, and I knew it was going to be a pretty special film. But I think at Sydney Film Festival as well was when it really dawned on me. I never thought it would get a cinema release in the UK and US. Pretty crazy.
Can I just say, as in, I obviously love Sequin, the character, but Toby is one of my favourites as well. I just love, because he's, as you said, he's not on screen that often, but his impact and on the story is, there's hope, isn't there? When we see Toby, and because God, there are bits in the film where we need hope. We need to feel that there's, that there's sunlight. If we kind of look a little bit at Australia, because I'm a massive fan of work from Australia. I was desperately trying to find any voice that didn't like the film in Australia. Am I right in saying that it's been universally adopted as something rather special? I'm going to read a few things here. It will shock the average cinema audience, yeah, possibly. If you've got problems with explicit depiction of homosexual sex, don't go near it. Yeah, possibly. If you like a challenge and enjoy thought-provoking cinema, this is the one for you. Simply extraordinary. I could go on and on talking about this brings, LGBT storytelling, it's the coming of age, it's maturity. Do you want to elaborate? Anyone want to elaborate on, is it a love affair with Australia and this film, or have I just been reading the wrong websites?
Yeah, like I remember we were wrapping up the picture lock of the film, so wrapping up the visual edit of the film, and it didn't have graphics on it or anything just yet. I'd seen them, but they hadn't been put with the film yet, and that's obviously a huge part of the storytelling. And my producer came and watched it for the first time, and afterwards we're having a conversation, and we're just talking, like, we haven't really talked about festivals yet. You always have that mind to it in the edit, but you're focusing on the story. And because the producer was there, we talked about it for the first time, and we both turned to each other and we said, I reckon it might play at Mardi Gras Film Festival. I reckon we'll premiere there. And they've been a huge part of our story, and they've been incredible to us. And I love Mardi Gras Film Festival, but we really did have this expectation that that those doors just weren't open to us in terms of like a mainstream release. I think Australia is largely still a very conservative country. And I can honestly say, and I think I speak for all three of us, that we have been shocked and humbled every single time we played at a festival in Australia that the film has sold well or sold out, or has been, programmed at a time where it's not like the late midnight session, or it's not like the a day session, or it's not just put at the indie cinema. We were put in one of the main cinemas for our premiere at Sydney Film Festival, and we felt we felt really welcomed. And as someone who grew up in like a very conservative part of Australia where I used to get hit for being gay, I never ever imagined that a story so personal to me would get so warmly embraced in the way that it has in my own country. So that's been life-changing, but it's also been a process that's made me, I think, a more courageous storyteller and a more courageous filmmaker.
I think people, I've been to the Sydney Film Festival. I remember having drinks with Philip Noyce without realising who he was, which was rather embarrassing, seeing as I liked Ed for Ed October and Dead Calm and all that stuff. But it's a massive festival, isn't it? It's like the big mainstream, and quite conservative generally, or how much of an exception did they make with Sequin?
I think it's tricky because it's an international film festival, of course. Both Melbourne and Sydney are, and I think we don't have a huge indie film scene in Australia in terms of genuine independent work that doesn't come with the support of the funding bodies or doesn't have bigger studios behind it. We make a lot of films for not much money. That's a great Australian filmmaking tradition. But micro budget indie feature filmmaking, I don't think is something that until a recent history that we've really done well, and especially in the queer space. So I think, that year especially was really fantastic, and Sydney Film Festival were really amazing because we weren't the only micro-budget Australian film that was in that year. There were 2 or 3 of us, and we were sort of able to all be together, like the filmmakers, but also our audiences. You know, we would promote their film, they would promote our film, but also we do Q&As together, and we do promotion together, and it had this real energy to it, which is all, you know, Sydney Film Festival is entirely responsible for, which was that, oh, this is possible. We need to champion this kind of filmmaking, and that these stories are necessary and important, and that there is that a younger, fresher voice that you know, isn't going to wait around and direct a bunch of shorts and then a TV show and then claw to get the funding to finally make a feature. They're just going to do it. And that's, yeah, I think Sydney Film Festival has been a huge part of seeing more of those be made, because in the 3 years since we made ours, so many have been made, and especially so many queer micro project features.
If we sort of just open up the conversation, obviously, you know, you're talking to the UK, I'm in Wales, we've got England, Scotland, we've got, you know, different bits all trying to develop Indigenous stories and all of that stuff. As writers, directors, actors in Australia, can you sort of sketch out to me what the landscape is like work-wise? You know, is it somewhere where you can stay in Australia and make a living, or is it you stay in Australia and then you have to cut your cloth? Is there any kind of push to leave Australia to find work? Because obviously filmmaking is international anyway. So just sort of sketch out. We say start with Conor, you know, as an actor, and then I'll move over to Simon as an actor / director as well. So Conor, where do you envisage being able to pick and choose from Australia, or do you have to think about a slightly bigger playing field?
I think that there are a lot of really promising and exciting projects starting to come out of Australia. Like the briefs I get are really exciting. I in November worked on a TV show for a channel we have over here called SBS, and they're like doing some amazing progressive programming, and we're seeing more and more diversity. There is a lot of rejection, and there are down periods, and yeah, that's the industry in Australia is small, but I think it's growing. I don't think I can speak to the arena of filmmaking, but as an actor, it feels like things are developing.
Cool. Simon, were you always thinking about being a filmmaker as well as being an actor, you know, that you wanted to be a part of a different section of the storytelling process? Or was it something, is it like an insurance policy, so when the acting dries up, you can go in another slightly other direction? Are you sort of, you know, can you explain a little bit about that choice?
Well, I guess it kind of did become that. I really wanted to be an actor and I loved acting. But yeah, I was finding that I would have a lot of periods where I wasn't really doing much. And so I thought I would go to film school and learn about that side of the storytelling craft, and then be able to tell my own stories as well. So that I aren't just waiting, I guess, for an audition or whatnot.
Yeah, and somebody who is, you know, say somebody watching this now who's an aspiring filmmaker, do you think it's easier getting favours if you are an actor? So if you're already kind of connected into the industry, that you can, you know, bring people together to, you know, downtime or whatever to help you out?
It's hard to answer. I mean, obviously the pandemic's kind of skewed my memory a bit. I haven't really worked on much since that whole shutdown, but I guess it does expand your network a bit, and it's a great skill set to have. So I do really recommend it.
Yeah, and I think because you brought up the pandemic, it was very sad that, you know, you couldn't make it to Iris last year, because obviously Iris became like an awful lot of festivals, a virtual festival. So it'll be interesting for all of us, I guess, picking up the pieces. And I'm not going to use the word getting back to normal, because I'm not quite sure what normal means. Sam, if I can ask you, as we're getting towards the end of our talk, Russell T Davies, a big, massive fan of him. Not because he's Welsh, obviously. I'm not that minded. but he recently threw into the arena comments along the lines of wanting to work with gays on a gay project, and he was obviously referring to It's a Sin, an unbelievably well-received story looking at the AIDS situation and guiding us through the whole 80s decade. And there was quite a lot of controversy, quite a lot of soul searching. What's your take on that conversation in a wider context about gays doing gays and whatever that means?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think anyone who's in the space of telling queer stories, I think you encounter this conversation constantly, and I think it grows and changes. And I think my own opinion on it has grown and changed. In making Sequin, casting Sequin as someone who was on the queer spectrum was crucial to me. And that wasn't that it was exclusively that. It was important to me because growing up, every single time I would see a queer coming of age film, none of them, or I felt authentically represented my own experience. And that's part of the reason I wanted to make this film in the first place. But what always disappointed me as a young queer person was finding out that it was played by whatever, straight, white generally, Hollywood actor was sort of in the coming up list, and wanted to do something a little bit different, or wanted to break out of their, whatever it is, mold that they were in. And what it came down to was the sheer amount. And it wasn't a case of, oh, that's a shame that one's straight. No, they were all straight. And that became an issue. And then extending further, as I started to become a filmmaker, I started to become a storyteller, I would look at the writers and I'd look at the directors, and I started seeing that same sort of issue. And I think the space that we're in now, or the space that we're maybe finding ourselves coming toward the other end of, is it's about ownership. And it's that it's not about exclusively putting up a wall and saying only gay people can play gay roles, or only gay directors can tell gay stories, or writers, or whatever it is. It's about saying that, no, there needs to be a shift here, and there needs to be at least some sort of equalness, and that the numbers can't be as disparate as they were. And that comes down to especially mainstream cinema. And something like, It's a Sin has experienced incredible mainstream success. And every year, we're generally seeing a queer film in the Oscars talk, and we're seeing queer series on Disney Plus and all the streaming services. And it's a different ballgame now, but it's about getting that to more of an even keel. And I think that's why there's a lot of sensitivity and a lot of people drawing hard lines in the sand. And yeah, I think if anything, that's about raising the conversation and ensuring that we're having it before we lock in our cast and we lock in our crew, and we make those everlasting choices.
Yeah. So Conor, Simon, it's fair to say then, would you agree that it's more to do with collaboration, it's to do with representation, it's not necessarily a fixed rule? Because the idea that a gay actor can't play straight is kind of I don't quite understand where we're coming from if that's the logical conclusion, that it's each project should be looked at individually, and then it's a matter of original, authentic voices.
I mean, yeah, I think it is. I think it is a matter of representation. I think it's a matter of which actors have been afforded fluidity historically in terms of who they are on screen. Like, generally, your baseline is straight, white, and male for your ability to transform into a character of particularly a queer character. You think of like Jared Leto in Dallas Buyers Club, for example. But queer actors historically have not been afforded that same fluidity. I think at this point in time, if it is feasible, I think every effort should be made to cast authentically at this point in time.
Simon, anything more to add on this conversation?
I think Conor and Sam both said it perfectly, so I won't add any more.
I think I don't want to finish on that note. I want to finish on an upbeat note as well. And we've already mentioned 2020, the year that was, but kind of the year that wasn't, in a strange way. I met you in LA, which was unbelievably exciting, premiere, all of that stuff. If you could choose, don't worry, Conor, I'm not going to ask for the best festival experience you had, because I know that was but I am going to ask, let's say there's Sequin 2, where would you like to go? Anywhere on this planet of ours with Sequin 2, and what would you do after the premiere? So I'll start with Sam. Do you want to take us somewhere on this wonderful planet of ours?
Simon, you go first. I'm not sure.
I feel like such a visitor to this project, because really it's Conor and Sam at the helm of this story. So I've been really lucky to come along to some of the festivals when I've been available, and they've always been such a blast. I would love to go to America with these guys again. So let's lock in New York City.
New York. Would it help, Simon? Would it help if I said that Sequin 2 is Tommy's story?
Okay.
We have talked about this, Simon. Remember, we talked about this in LA. It has to be Tommy's story. Yeah.
We imagined.
Oh my God! Is this an exclusive? Are we hearing the beginning of? Oh.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm no longer attached.
The big concern that Sam kind of went like that.
Yeah.
We've had artistic differences.
I think.
Where are you going to go with the next film? Which premiere, and what are you going to do afterwards?
New York sounds fabulous, and we'll drag Sam along kicking and screaming. Gosh, we had a lot of fun at lots of festivals, and Outfest was fabulous, Iris was fabulous. So just being with this crew was an absolute treat.
Okay, Sam, you've had a few minutes because you're not allowed to say New York, by the way. It's fully booked. Everybody's in New York.
I will say a new, but it's not York. I never got to screen the film in New Zealand, which is where I'm from. So if I could change anything, it would have been that. But New Zealand doesn't have many film festivals. The big mainstream one that it has didn't want to take on the film, and they don't have a queer film festival, so we never got to that chance to share it in that way. We've released it since on streaming, but I want to do that, and I would afterwards I would want Jacinda Ardern to be with us. That's about it.
Well,
absolutely.
Can I suggest, Sam, that the festival in New Zealand will probably do a retrospective of your work. They'll have to wait maybe a few years so you can build a catalogue of titles. And I'm sure Sequin will be on a big screen as part of that retrospective. On that joyous note, I kind of like to book my tickets to New Zealand whenever that happens. So all I can say is get on and make some more films. And yeah, thank you, all three of you, for joining us today. And for everybody in the UK, you can watch Sequin in a Blue Room today. You could watch it all day and all night, and I'm guessing some of you will. The information is on the screen. But for this edition of the Sofa Club, it's good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope to see you all.